Already time for a new book. I was deciding between a couple of them, and the one I decided not to read is The Mysterious Benedict Society. It's a series of 3 or 4 books where people are solving mysterious problems, kind of like the potato chip puzzles, but it's not a separate puzzle like that. It's actually more within the story. There's no separate book, but it's a little harder read. But if you enjoyed solving puzzles while reading a book, I highly recommend the Mysterious Benedict Society series. It's by Trenton Lee Stewart. But I am going to read a book I've never read before. It's called Max Einstein, The Genius Experiment. It's by James Patterson, who writes a lot of adult novels as well. And I love how it said on the side, it's a must-read. This book is brilliant. That review by astronaut Timothy Peake, that's one got my attention. It also received the Albert Einstein Award. Can't go wrong with that. So let's start up. There's a little page at the beginning before the story begins, and it says, "Hi, I'm Jimmy. Like me, you probably noticed the world is run by adults. But ask yourself, who would do the best job of making books that kids would love? Yeah, that's right, kids. So that's how the idea of Jimmy Books came to life. We want every Jimmy book to be so good that when you're finished, you'll say, 'Please give me another book.' Give this one a try and see if you agree. If not, you're probably an adult." Jimmy Patterson. So I guess I would go look up the Jimmy books and see if there are other books that Jimmy Books would recommend. Let's see. Max Einstein. Imagination is more important than knowledge. And that's a quote by Albert Einstein, and there's a drawing of him. The stench of horse manure woke Max Einstein with a jolt. Of course! Even though she was shivering, she threw off her blanket and hopped out of bed. Actually, it wasn't a bed. More like a lumpy, water-stained mattress with frayed seams. But that didn't matter. Ideas could come wherever they wanted. She raced down the hall. The floorboards, bare planks laid across the rough beams, creaked and wobbled with every step. Her red hair, of course, was a bouncing tangle of wild curls. It was always a bouncing tangle of wild curls. Max rapped her knuckles on a lopsided door hanging off rusty hinges. Well, that was a surprise to me. I was expecting Max to be a boy, but she's a girl. "Mr. Kennedy," she knocked again. "Mr. Kennedy." "What?" came a sleeping mumble. "Max, are you okay?" Max took that question as permission to enter Mr. Kennedy's apartment. She practically burst through his wonky door. "I'm fine, Mr. Kennedy. In fact, I'm better than fine. I've got something great here. At least I think it's something great. Anyway, it's really, really cool. This idea could change everything. It could save our world. It's what Albert Einstein would have called an aha moment." "Maxine?" "Yes, Mr. Kennedy?" "It's 6 o'clock in the morning, girl." "Is it? Oh, I'm sorry about the inconvenient hour, but you never know when a brainstorm will strike, do you?" "No, not with you, anyway." Max was wearing a floppy trench coat over her shabby sweater. Lately, she'd been sleeping in the sweater under a scratchy horse blanket because her so-called bedroom was, just like Mr. Kennedy's, extremely cold. The tall and sturdy black man, his hair flecked with patches of white, creaked out of bed and rubbed some of the sleep out of his eyes. He slid his bare feet into shoes he had fashioned out of cardboard and newspapers. "Hang on," he said. "Need to put on my bedroom slippers here." But the floor's so cold, said Max. Huh? You need to improvise those bedroom slippers because the floor is cold every morning, correct? Maxine, we're sleeping, uninvited, above a horse stable. Of course the floors are cold. And in case you hadn't noticed, the place doesn't smell so good either. Max, Mr. Kennedy, and about a half dozen other homeless people were what New York City called squatters. That meant they were living rent-free in the vacant floors above a horse stable. The first 2 floors of the building housed a parking garage for Central Park carriages and stalls for the horses that pulled them. The top 3 floors, as far as the owner of the building knew, they were vacant. Winter is coming, Mr. Kennedy. We have no central heating system. No, we sure don't. You know why? Because we don't pay rent, Max. Well, be that as it may, in the coming weeks these floors will only become colder. Soon we could all freeze to death, even if we were to board up all the windows. Well, that's not going to happen, said Mr. Kennedy. We need the ventilation. All that horse manure downstairs staking up the place? Exactly. That's precisely what I wanted to talk to you about. That's my big idea. Horse manure. That's the end of chapter 1.